Welcome back, guys. Today we're gonna talk about rivers. I will first show you how to create believable fantasy rivers by explaining you how the geography of these ones work, and then we're gonna see how to illustrate them on your fantasy map in 3 different ways possible. So let's dive into it. First off, you need to keep in mind 2 things. Rivers can be born because of the melting of the glaciers on top of mountains, or because the rainwater accumulates into the aquifer of the mountains and then tries to escape, quote-unquote. Long story short, make sure that your rivers will always be flowing from higher points, like a mountain, like a hill, towards the level of the sea, which is 0. Here I am illustrating mistakes that can be done while drawing a fantasy map. And remember, there is no way for a river to be born from a coastline, because that just makes it a piece of sea, of salty water, and there is no way for a river to simply be crossing from a coastline to another, because at this point, that's simply a piece of sea dividing two different lands. As for the second topic, we're going to talk about path resistance. Always keep in mind that your river will always flow towards the direction that will be most likely opposing less resistance. So just as I have drawn, it's most likely to go in between hills instead of simply jumping from one hill to another, because it's simpler to go in the middle of the hills, and that's why valleys tend to have rivers in the middle of them. Now, to tie with the previous topic, we're going to talk about splitting rivers. They simply do not exist. We have just talked about path resistance, and there is no way for the soil to have 2 exact measurements of resistance in 2 different points of the space. So the river will always flow only in one direction. That's why rivers will never split. But, as I am drawing now, they can actually join each other, and this is the 4th point I want to cover. By joining each other, rivers tend to go massive. And this is why rivers that end up in the coastline, in the sea, are always quite big. And now we're gonna cover the 5th and last point. Simply make sure that all of your rivers end up either in a lake or in the sea. And now, just to clarify, we can talk about deltas a little bit. Deltas are not mandatory for the end of a river, but it's quite common for them to exist because they are simply the result of the rivers carrying debris taken from the soil until the end of the run of the river. And this debris can literally create some little islands at the end of the river, creating deltas as we see them. And now a quick look at the 3 techniques I'm going to show you for drawing rivers. For the first technique, simply draw mountains, as we have talked about, and for the river, simply draw a flicky line that ends up in the coastline. It's quite simple, nice looking, and as they say, less is better, and it can look really good in my opinion. The second technique is heavily based on the first one. Simply draw mountains, then a flicky line for the river, but once you have done the river, you might want to pick a thinner pen, I didn't, and draw little flicks to emphasize the fact that the river is actually excavating the soil while flowing down towards the sea. And this is it, the second technique is done. The third technique is quite good if you draw in digital and you want to color the water, because in this case you want to duplicate the lines to make a 3-dimensional looking river. Once you have completed the outline of the river, simply draw flicks as for the second technique, and you're done even with this one. And that's it. I am now going to leave a piece of a video that you can screenshot for yourself to keep in mind the 5 points we have just covered, plus the 3 techniques for drawing rivers. And I'll see you on the next video.